Hi students, today's lesson is Counseling for Employees. Employee counseling gives individuals a valuable opportunity to work through problems and stresses in a strictly confidential and supportive atmosphere. Counseling provides employees the access to several basic forms of helping, for example, provision of information, direct action, teaching and coaching, advocacy and providing feedback and advice, etc. Typically, counseling involves the individual employee meeting with a psychological advisor, usually on a one-on-one basis. The focus of counseling sessions is to encourage the discussion of personal and work-related difficulties. This is often followed by the adoption of an active problem-solving approach to tackle the issues at hand. It is not uncommon for the individual employee and counselor to meet once or twice a week for several weeks. However, the number and frequency of meetings required will depend upon the nature of the perceived issues or concerns or difficulty and the intervention needed. Objectives of employee counseling. Explore and find the key sources of difficulty or issues or concerns faced by the employee. This step may include interview, narration by employee, and the use of diagnostic self-report tests. Review the employee's current strategies and styles of coping. Implement methods of dealing with the perceived difficulty or issues or concerns, thereby alleviating the issue. Often, this step may involve also improving the employee's interpersonal relations at work and or personal performance. Evaluate the effectiveness of the chosen strategies that aided the employee in coping better. Employee counseling is a psychological healthcare intervention that may take many forms. Its aim is to assist both the employer and employee by intervening with an active problem-solving approach to tackling the problem or difficulty or issues or concerns at hand. Counseling is a dyadic relationship between two persons, a person who is offering help, that is a counselor, and an employee to whom such help is given, counselee. It may be formal or informal. Informal counseling is concerned with inputs provided during day-to-day relationship between the employer, that is a superior, and the employees, they are the subordinates, where help is readily offered without any formal plan. Every manager has a responsibility to counsel their subordinates. When individual managers are unable to work with specific problems or difficulties or issues or concerns faced by the employees, the counseling services of a professional body is required. Formal counseling is a planned and systematic way of offering help to employees by expert counselors. An organization can either offer the services of a full-time in-house counselor or refer the employee to a community counseling service. Need for employee assistance programs in organizations. The costs to industry and commerce each year associated with employees' poor psychological health are enormous. A significant proportion of the gross national product of industrialized countries is lost each year through ill health, particularly in respect of stress-related illness of individuals in the working sector. These costs increase substantially when lost productivity resulted from stress-related inefficiency and incompetence is taken into account. Stress-related incompetence is not inevitable, though formal employee counseling programs can do much to prevent the negative effects of stress at an individual level and ultimately at an organizational level. Few organizations can now afford to ignore the consequences associated with employees' psychological health. Counseling has been practiced in one form or other since the evolution of humankind. In every field which requires working with people, counseling is essential. The requirement for employee counseling arises due to various causes in addition to stress faced by them. These causes include experience of negative emotions, interpersonal problems and conflicts at workplace, inability to meet demands at work, excess workload, confrontation with authority, challenges in meeting responsibility, accountability, conflicts with the superiors, subordinates and management. The counseling service need not be limited to address work-related issues of employees. It may be extended for marital conflicts, issues with children, financial difficulties or general psychiatric disorders that may not be directly related to the job, but that may spill over and affect the employee's work performance. Therefore, employee counseling is equally necessary for both personal as well as work-related issues. Performance counseling involves helping an employee understand their own performance, find where they stand in relation to others, and identify ways to improve their skills and performance. It focuses essentially on the analysis of their performance on the job and identification of training needs for further improvement. An increasingly popular form of employee counseling involves employees who are about ready to retire. Pre-retirement counseling mentally prepares individuals to work through the realities of leisure time, as well as outlining details about social security benefits and company pension provisions. Characteristics of employee counseling: sensitizes organizations be more humane and considerate with people's problems or difficulties or issues or concerns. Counseling is an exchange of ideas and feelings between two people. Counseling sessions are usually kept confidential in order to encourage sharing and discussions in an open manner. It may be imparted by both professionals and non-professionals. It involves working through both work-related and personal problems of employees. It attempts to improve organizational performance by helping the employees to have a better mental health to cope with the difficulty or issues or concerns. Functions of employee counseling. This objective can be achieved by performing various counseling functions. They are: advice. The counselor has to understand the problem of the counselee completely before offering advice and suggesting a course of action. Reassurance. In order to give courage to face a problem confidently, counseling provides employees with reassurance. Communication. Counseling will improve both upward and downward communication abilities of the counselees. Release of emotional tension. People feel emotional release from their frustration after counseling. Release of tension may not solve the entire problem, but run over mental blocks to the solution. Clarified thinking. Release of tension and thereby removal of mental blocks to the solution through counseling allows the counselee to think freely and objectively. Reorientation. Reorientation is a change in the counselee's psychic self through a change in the basic goals and values. Benefits of employee counseling. The following are the benefits to the counselee. The individual learns to respond and adjust more positively to people and situations. They are able to improve their personal effectiveness. They are able to clear the mind of emotional irritants, overcome their personal weaknesses, and work more effectively. They feel more relaxed when they are able to share their concerns and problems with a trusted friend, the counselor who assures confidentiality and extends a helping hand readily. Once an employee turns to be a problem employee, the employer has mainly two options, that is, repair and recover or replace. For the purpose of repairing and recovering and rehabilitating, employee counseling has an important role to play. Inferiority feeling of an employee may play great havoc in individual life and work. A mild form of inferiority in certain persons may help them to work hard and overcome the inferiority. But very often, inferiority complex may lead a person to utter disappointment and depression, leading to withdrawal, perversion, absenteeism, and even psychosomatic and psychotic problems. Inferiority is a feeling of inadequacy in comparison with others, or a feeling of being lesser to others in some ways. When the inferiority feelings in a person becomes overwhelming and persisting, it may develop into a state which Adler called inferiority complex. Recently, thinkers started believing that inferiority can be overcome by building the self-esteem, and effective counseling facilitates in gaining self-esteem. Self-esteem is closely linked with self-image, self-worth, and self-concept. Self-concept and self-image are the terms which represent the picture which we have of ourselves. Self-image and self-concept may include a list of character traits, physical features, attitudes, feelings, strengths, weaknesses, etc. Very often, injustice or ill treatment make considerable impact in their minds, resulting in behavioral problems, inferiority and low self-esteem. Depriving an employee of adequate wages, leave, or any perks, giving them an arrogant treatment, depriving a legitimate promotion, promoting somebody overlooking the legitimate candidate. Many such incidents take place in organizations very often, which may result in inferiority feeling or feeling of low self-esteem and low morale, affecting the efficiency of the aggrieved employee. As far as possible, such incidents must be avoided. Once such a situation arises and an employee is aggrieved, it is better to rectify it. Premarital anxieties and sexual perversions. Premarital anxieties are common in many young employees. Once the marriage is arranged and the person is engaged, their anxiety increases. Two people of different family backgrounds, different cultures, different environments, etc. are bound to have anxieties before they come together. If one happens to remain unmarried after a particular age too, one's anxiety is bound to increase. Similarly, there are possibilities for sexual perversions in not only young employees but even in those who are married. In all such cases, the concerned employee needs counseling before a total breakdown and collapse of personality. Such persons may be spiritually motivated, educated, kept under the close contact of an influence group, and so on. Alcoholism. Alcoholism is perhaps the largest threat to the human element of organization. In fact, alcoholism is a serious social, moral, and health problem. It ruins careers, disrupts families, affects productivity and efficiency, destroys bodies, and leads to untold human misery. Many traffic accidents are caused by alcohol abuse. There are many factors which lead to alcoholism. Prominent among them are 1. Hereditary or genetic, 2. Executive culture, 3. Executive stresses, 4. Physiological reasons, 5. Broken family setup, 6. Environmental influence, 7. Low job satisfaction and morale, 8. Tasks involving strenuous physical exertion, 9. Perpetuating influences, 10. Feelings of depression and stagnation, and 11. Feeling of isolation and loneliness. The problem of addictions. Another important employee problem which may require counseling is addictions. Addiction is a very dangerous problem which torments the social and work environment of today. Drug addiction has gone beyond proportions among youngsters nowadays. Not only drug addiction, many people are addicted to alcohol, pornographic materials, television, sexual perversions, smoking, compulsive spending, overeating, gambling, and so on. There are some people who are addicted to earning money and amassing wealthy by hook or by crook. There are workaholics who have addiction to work, due to which there are many broken families in the urban society. Addiction is any habit, practice, behavior, or even thinking which is habitually or compulsively attached to a person, which exerts more and more control and power over them. There can be many causes for addiction, some of which are 1. Inadequate parental attention, 2. Broken family atmosphere, 3. Bad company, 4. Peer or other social influence, 5. Feeling of emptiness in life, depression or stresses, 6. Low self-esteem and deception, and 7. Psychological or psychiatric problems. Mental conflict in union rivalries. In recent times, there are many employees who lose their confidence, mental peace, job satisfaction and productivity due to union rivalries. Many right-thinking and unattached employees become the victims of such rivalries. Some aggressive trade union leaders and their henchmen even manhandle, assault and ill-treat such employees. Their legitimate promotions and claims are blocked by such trade unionists. Sometimes even management becomes helpless in doing justice to such employees due to the obstructions and resistances created by such union leaders. In such situations, victims are bound to be disappointed, disgruntled, and aggrieved, resulting in depression and stress. Executive counselors and human resources executives have great role to play in rebuilding the personality and career through counseling and timely intervention. The employees can be recovered and revitalized through counseling and timely guidance. Breakdown in interpersonal relationships is another important problem which creates low morale and depression in work life of an employee, which deserves timely intervention and counseling. There are many stressful situations in one's work life. Organizational causes of stress are occupational demands, role conflict, role ambiguity, that is stress from uncertainty, stress from overload and underload, taking responsibility for others, stress from evaluation, poor working conditions, and unwanted changes. Interpersonal stresses make more impact in work life of an individual. Strains and breakdowns in interpersonal relationships have direct relationship with individual stress experienced. When cordial relationships exist in the workplace, impact of other stresses may be optimally worked through by an employee. But when stresses from strained interpersonal relationship in the work environment increase, the individual's effectiveness, balance and productivity can get affected. In all such occasions, counseling and guidance would become necessary to help the individual to control their problem emotions and sustain himself to be effective in the group. Types of employee counseling. In attempting to help an employee who has a problem, a variety of counseling approaches are used. All of these counseling approaches, however, depend on active listening. Sometimes the mere furnishing of information or advice may be the solution to what at first appeared to be a knotty problem. More frequently, however, the problem cannot be solved easily because of frustrations or conflicts that are accompanied by strong feelings such as fear, confusion, or hostility. A manager therefore needs to learn to use whatever approach appears to be suitable at the time. Flexibility is a key component of the employee counseling process. Directive counseling. It is counseling in a complete sense. It is the process of listening to an employee's problem, deciding with the employee what should be done, and telling and motivating the employee to do it. This type of counseling mostly does the function of advice, reassurance, and communication. It may also perform other functions of counseling. Non-directive counseling. In non-directive counseling, the employee is permitted to have maximum freedom in determining the course of the interview. It is a process of skillfully listening and encouraging a counselee to explain troublesome problems, understand them, and determine appropriate solutions. Fundamentally, the approach is to listen with understanding and without criticism or appraisal to the problem as it is described by the employee. The employee is encouraged through the manager's attitude and reaction to what is said or not said to express feelings without fear of shame, embarrassment, or reprisal. The free expression that is encouraged in the non-directive approach tends to reduce tensions and frustrations. The employee who has had an opportunity to release pent-up feelings is usually in a better position to view the problem more objectively and with a problem-solving attitude. Participative counseling. Both directive and non-directive methods suffer from limitations. While the former is often not accepted by independent employees, the latter needs professionals to operate and hence it is costly. Hence, the counseling used in most situations is in between these two. This middle path is known as participative counseling. Participative is a counselor-counselee relationship that establishes a cooperative exchange of ideas to help solve an employee's problems. It is neither wholly counselor-centered nor wholly counselee-centered. Counselor and counselee mutually apply their different knowledge, perceptions, skills, perspectives, and values to problems into the problems and find solutions. Effectiveness of counseling largely depends on the methods and techniques as well as the skills used by the counselor. Methods and techniques of counseling change from person to person and from situation to situation. Normally, employee counseling involves the following methods. Desensitization. According to desensitization, once an animal has been shocked in a particular situation, it will continue to avoid it indefinitely. This is quite true in respect of human beings also. Once an individual is shocked in a particular situation, they give themselves no chance for the situation to recur. This method can be used to overcome avoidance reactions so as to improve the emotional weak spots. If an employee was once shocked by the behavior, approach, or action of their superior, they would continue to avoid that superior. It is difficult for such superiors to be effective counselors unless such superiors prove otherwise through their behavior or action on the contrary. Similarly, once an employee is shocked by a particular situation, they can be brought back to that situation only if they will be convinced through desensitization that the shock will not take place. Counselor can make use of desensitization in such situations. Catharsis. Discharge of emotional tensions can be called catharsis. Emotional tensions can be discharged by talking them out or by relieving of the painful experience which engendered them. It is an important technique as a means of reducing the tensions associated with anxiety, fear, hostility, or guilt. Catharsis facilitates to gain insight into the ways an emotional trauma has been affecting the behavior. A. Insight. With the help of insight, one may find that they have devalued themselves unnecessarily, or their aspirations were unrealistic, or that their childish interpretation of an event was inaccurate. Then they can overcome their weakness. B. Developing the new patterns. Developing new patterns becomes very often necessary when other methods to deal with weak spots remain ineffective. In order to develop new, more satisfying emotional reactions, the individual needs to expose themselves to situations where they can experience positive feelings. The manager who deals with such individuals may motivate or instigate them to put themselves into such situations so that their self-confidence may increase. Every counselor must concentrate their full attention on two aspects, that is, using of assessment tools and utilizing counseling methods, choice of which differs from person to person, situation to situation, and from case to case. The process of employee counseling has three phases: rapport building, exploration, and action planning. These are discussed below. Rapport building. Initially, the counselor manager should level themselves with the employee and tune themselves to their orientations. General opening rituals like offering a chair, closing the door to indicate privacy, asking the secretary not to disturb are all important in demonstrating the manager's genuine interest in employees' problems. The counselor must listen to the problems, to the feelings and concerns of the employee carefully and attentively. Leaning forward and eye contact are important signs of active listening. The employee must feel that he or she is wanted and the counselors are interested in them genuinely. Exploration. Besides active listening, the counselor should help the employee find their own weaknesses and problems through open and exploring questions. They should be encouraged to open up fully and talk more on the problem. This would enable both parties to uncover various dimensions of the problem clearly. Once the key issue is identified, for example, inability to get along with colleagues, not being promoted despite hard work, boss does not like his work, etc., it should be diagnosed thoroughly. Open questions like, why do people pick arguments with you? On what occasions did you try to get ahead in the race? Who are coming in your way and why? These questions may help the employee visualize the problem from different angles. The whole exercise is meant to generate several alternative causes of a problem. Action planning. Counseling should finally help the employee find alternative ways of resolving a problem. The list of alternatives could be generated after 2 or 3 brainstorming sessions. The merits and limitations of each course of action could also be identified and the best course of action picked up, keeping the background factors like boss, colleagues, work-related issues, competitive pressures, etc. in mind. The employee should be encouraged to self-monitor the action plan without seeking further facilitation from the counselor. The counseling sessions could be monitored and reviewed at regular intervals later on. If employees are to function at an optimum level of well-being and competence, it is vital that they feel supported and valued. Organizational systems are sometimes quick to make demands and hinder, but occasionally slow to help. Employee counseling can be a vehicle to facilitate help in an effective, practical way. It is through such help that individuals are motivated to understand and realize their own career potential, thus maximizing the chances of functioning in the best interests of the organization.